Sex has always been a prominent device in films to depict obsession, manipulation, and, well, depravity. It is often utilized in horror films to mark the first victims of the antagonist. It's a driving motivation for many television series, and so on. But when did this start? I believe the genre that first boldly incorporated intimacy into the conversation about violence was film noir. And with years, the film noir disappeared, but the psychological exploration and incorporation of sex didn't. Let's break down how the film noir introduced the psychosexual subgenre and how it's been redefined in modern thrillers. After World War II, America began to distribute many thrillers that explore the grisly side of crime. The films of this era were infamous for their nihilism, which at that time was a major shift in the country. The French identified this change as film noir. While the 40s was when the term was originally coined, elements of noir can be traced back to German expressionism in the 20s. High-key contrast lighting and heavy use of shadows were recycled into the film noir genre. Audiences were witnessing for the first time the concepts of anti-heroism, despondence, and the critique or expose of once lionized corrupt leaders. The entire genre was about indulging in wicked and sinful lives, so concepts of lust were most of the driving forces of film noir. While at this point in film history, restrictions and censorships were strictly adhered to, many filmmakers found their way around it, especially when it came to sex. Back then, discussions of sex was extremely rare, so for the only representation of it to be through promiscuous women luring men into a trap, or men with a sick obsession with someone they can't have, was all incredibly unsettling. And the noir genre wanted to frighten you into harsh realities of the world, challenging the audience to see just how far they could watch something like this, and maybe even making the audience question why they enjoy it.
Vertigo is one of the most complex of Hitchcock's films. It's about someone who falls so in love with a character that after he knows she's dead, he believes her to be alive. It really is about how our emotions take over from our intellect and give us what we need to survive a tragedy. Also, it's one of the great mystery stories ever filmed.
Hitchcock's hypnotic Vertigo is a great example of this. Hitchcock's use of violence intertwines with the infatuation. The love isn't truly love, it's obsession. He takes something that has only been painted in films in a positive, romantic light and mixes it with violence, betrayal, and even deceives us at times by masking it as supernatural. Hitchcock never explicitly mentions or depicts sex, but the obsession is illusion enough. The film is a massive commentary on desires. Hitchcock alludes to how sexual desires can distort our understanding of reality and morality. The film's involvement of lust is so pervasive that many even assume the film is Hitchcock's own confession and apology for how he let his own desires carry over to his female cast and the typecast roles he writes for them. Another great example is Wilder's thrilling Double Indemnity. The film stars one of the most iconic femme fatale characters. In fact, this film proves that sex played such a prominent role in the genre that an entire category of characters was created because of it. The femme fatale is a seductive woman who plays a pivotal role in luring and destroying the men of the story. In this film, the femme fatale Phyllis Dietrichson's promiscuous and scheming nature represents just how far lust can take you. Wilder never truly depicts anything sensual, but her character naturally exudes it. Her seductive nature acts as a motif for sex itself, how it can be just as dangerous and wicked as it is intriguing. The beauty she represents is closely intertwined with her greed and wrath, and in a way is almost a warning. To choose her is to choose a life of corruption. There are a myriad of films that do this. From Psycho to Killer's Kiss, Many film noirs have undertones of sexual discourse. This decision to discuss such matters years ago still apply to today's cinema, but in a different way. As time went on, the noir blended into your regular thriller. Speaking and depicting gore had become normalized, and restrictions became more flexible. The exploration of sex became graphic and nuanced. While back then the sexual implications were meant to frighten audiences, now it was used to destruct the psyche. The genre exploited its intimacy, turning it into vulnerability and discomfort. They use sex to delve into Freudian theories and psychoanalyses on human desires as an attempt to instill fear on a psychological level.
I think Eyes Wide Shut is a profound film about love, sex, and trust in a marriage, about learning to take things day by day and either accepting or ignoring whatever unpleasant truths come along. And there are all kinds of clues in the film as to that, in a way, because you really take a journey inside Tom Cruise's mind, in a way, in this wonderful sense of sexuality and guilt and unpleasant discoveries and the journey the marriage has to take, all building up to the last line, which is a beauty.
Yes, it is.
One of the most iconic psychosexual thrillers is Kubrick's final film, Eyes Wide Shut. His uncomfortably immersive journey into the depraved streets of New York City haunts you. Since the film circulates concepts of infidelity, the film is incredibly explicit. But the depiction and mentions of sex aren't superficial nor for shock value. The sexual discourse is meant to represent the conflicts of modern marriages. As society gets more depraved, the loyalty and intimacy of a marriage are challenged. It isn't just about the scandalous nature of it, but also about how our brains respond to jealousy. Kubrick shows how interweaving suspense and sex can go hand in hand. And of course, there's a much more sinister commentary, especially in the more infamous scenes, but that's a conversation for another time. Another director who often explores this concept is David Lynch. From Blue Velvet to his hit series Twin Peaks to his magnum opus Mulholland Drive, Lynch shows us how sex reveals the dark side of humanity and the unfortunate reality women must live with. In Mulholland Drive, Lynch uses sex to represent the trauma and abuse. He doesn't use it to lure you into a seductive world, but to divert you from it. He shows us how sex can traumatize and manipulate your ability to perceive what is real and what isn't, challenging us to view sex not as something provocative and tempting, but rather a serious and delicate matter. Other great films that dive into how sex can deconstruct our psyche are The Skin I Live In, Gone Girl, Old Boy, and The Handmaiden. These modern films have become more graphic, but their graphic nature isn't futile. Their depictions and discussions are all tailored towards an overarching theme. This makes films like A Clockwork Orange, Blow Up, and Chinatown all the more significant as they predicted this change. Psychosexual films show us how to use something often described as sleazy into something that has more substance to it, to use it as a device that only furthers the plot, characters, and most importantly, themes. These dramas and their evolution mirror how we as a society have changed in our discussions of sex. And I'd like to think that this is a great example of how society's adaptation can sometimes be a stronger influence on how our stories are made than how it influences us.